Welcome to Ask SQL Family podcast. This is episode number 13, and our guest today is James Rowland-Jones.
Our today guest is Principal Program Manager at Microsoft since December 2015, Director at Large in PAS for almost 4 years. It's former director, I should say, former organizing committee member for 7 years, and currently part of data platform team supporting massively parallel processing, which is the new name of that workloads in hybrid architecture. So when you are working with Azure SQL Data Warehouse, you have heard about him very likely. So our today's guest is
James Rowland-Jones.
Yeah, exactly. So James, where do you live currently?
I currently live in Sammamish, which is just outside of Redmond, just past Lake Sammamish in Washington State.
Yeah, it's very close to the Seattle, yeah? The Redmond, basically.
Yes, it's very close to Redmond.
Yeah. So, but you used to live in UK, yeah? So why decided to move to the USA?
So one of the I've been working in consulting for many years, worked in the partner ecosystem for a long time, and I realized that my impact was ultimately one customer at a time, and I could do my best for that one customer. But then an opportunity came up for me to be able to transfer over and actually kind of do what I could to help everybody all at once, and so I can release one feature and help everybody. And actually the opportunity to be part of the team making the product and be part of the journey that we're going on with Azure SQL Data Warehouse was an opportunity that was too good to pass up. So my family and I had some very long conversations, and
I can imagine.
And we decided that we wanted to do it, and that was it. And we moved over just over a year ago, and I'm here at SQLBits now, and this is my first time back. So it's great to
welcome back.
It's great. It's great to be here. Great to see SQLBits carrying on and going from strength to strength. Can't begin to tell you how proud I am of this event, and in terms of what it means to the global community of data professionals is something that, even at Microsoft I can see at Corp, everybody cares very much about the community and the success that we were able to achieve with SQLBits. So it's great to see it continuing, and long may it do so. Yeah,
so you've been with SQLBits from the beginning, yeah?
Pretty much. I first came over to SQLBits as an attendee. I attended the first one, and then the second SQLBits was the first time I had ever spoke about anything, and I did a talk on I/O. And then the third one I started to get involved, and then the fourth one I was really kind of actively involved in the committee of SQLBits, and and then pretty much right up until the point that I left and joined Microsoft, I was working very closely with Simon and Darren and Aaron and Chris, all of the organisers over the years to make these events happen. And it's one of the things I probably would say I am most proud of in all of my professional career.
Great. Absolutely,
even though I had, in many ways, nothing to do with my professional career, because obviously it's all volunteers like yourself who kind of make it all happen, right? So it's a great thing. It's something that is truly special.
Yeah, it's very good to see how your your child is growing, yeah?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, James, what are you doing for a living, basically?
So I'm a principal program manager at Microsoft now, and I work on Azure SQL Data Warehouse. So up until very recently, I was actually working directly, more kind of very product focused, and the current preview of the compute optimized performance tier was the area that I was leading, and I was delighted to be able to get that into a preview. Now, just recently, literally like a week or so ago, I have a slightly different role within the team, so I now lead a team of PMs, and we look at the end-to-end ecosystem around data warehousing and analytics in general. So thinking about what SQL DW's role is in an analytics platform, but also thinking about like what are the associated related services, how do they integrate together, how do we make sure that people aren't blocking.
A little bit wider view currently,
yeah, much broader perspective on how we actually make the kind of the magic happen up in Azure, right?
All the integration.
Yeah, so it's some of it's a big integration, some of it's like making sure that we have clear patterns and guidance and stuff like that.
Oh, great. And I've been on your session, so you are showing the new generation of data warehouse in Azure. So could you tell us a couple words about it? What's newest in the new generation of Azure Data Warehouse?
Yeah, so this compute optimized performance tier, which we have as like the next generation of SQL DW, is introduces new hardware from Azure. It's this new NVMe SSD capability into the compute nodes itself, and with that means that we can add to our story around separation of compute and storage. We can add this intelligent cache locally on the compute nodes, which eliminates the need for remote I/O when querying large volumes of data. The second thing to make use of that cache is that we externalize all of the column store segments, and we hold them independent of the actual SQL Server data files. So you can imagine how impossible this would be in an on-premise world. We're taking that data and we're holding it in the remote storage, and then as customers query their column store data, we move that column store segment up into the intelligent cache, and we manage it there so that queries basically, especially read queries, run exponentially faster.
Yeah, and the cache is pretty amazing, yeah? The 400 gigabits in the gigabytes.
So the nodes themselves are quite large physically, so every node today is about 400 gig or more of physical memory, and then you basically come down to the cache itself, and the disk-based this NVMe SSD disk-based cache has about 1.5 terabytes of cache in that node, and that actually is what delivers keeps the hottest data in the warehouse, which you can imagine a data warehouse is obviously tends to be like the tail of a table. Keeps that nice and tight to the CPUs, so that we can really deliver best-in-class performance.
Yeah,
and it's very exciting to see that.
I heard 100 performance better, improved of performance, yeah?
Yeah, it's my favorite individual kind of customer experience had one of our specific customers were able to get some of their queries to run kind of 100 times faster, but also they were running with half the compute cost. So they literally were running at half the compute power, but got this massive performance benefit on some of their queries, which is really great to see. I mean, it's great. That's great value for customers.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah. So you mentioned also about the data movement service.
Yes. Yeah. So we are also working very closely to, one of the things in a distributed system, in order to be able to resolve a query, you have to be able to transparently move data across the nodes in order to make it work properly. So what we do to achieve that is we use technologies like the data movement service. But what we're doing right now is actually trying to we took some of the core data movement types, one in particular called the shuffle move, and we've made it an in-process database movement. And because of that, we have also seen phenomenal perf improvements because the data itself, excuse me, the data itself just moves that much faster around the system.
Those things are all amazing, and probably the customers would be asked when it will be generally available.
Yeah, so we're currently targeting spring of this year to bring it into general availability. I mean, where we're at right now, customers can and are using the preview in about 6 regions of Azure, and we want to we'll be aggressively onboarding new regions as we go. SQL Data Warehouse currently is available in 33 regions in the world, and so it's like, I think it's over double that of any other cloud data warehouse available in the market today. So it's a great story for us, and it's a very important flagship product.
And you as an employee and a very important person from that perspective, from data warehouse in Azure, you are working with customers very closely, and so from that perspective, how do you think how fast customers are adopting those new technology in their environments?
So there's some very interesting patterns actually. So what we have seen a lot of the time is that customers moving into data warehousing in the cloud really want to take advantage of what the cloud can offer them, rather than just pick it up and just flip it into the cloud. They want to see what they can do to really modernize the platform. They're separating out their data. They're trying to leverage almost like a data lake driven approach in many cases. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it, right? The way they transfer data into blob storage and then move the data through into DW. So we've seen customers of all kind of shapes and sizes across all the major verticals, which is great to see. It's not like it's just kind of landed in one vertical, so that's always very important for us. And then the other thing that we've seen is that you get these net new style workloads where customers are integrating, basically, like if you can think of like your transactional feeds with your cloud data sources, like dynamic CRM or Salesforce or whatever, integrating that into their flow, and then also maybe even some sensor data, IoT style, all of those different types and flavors of data all coming in, and then using DW to kind of serve that out organizationally. It's interesting because you get the more typical workloads, and then you get the people that kind of see the potential, doing something different, and then even going on and building out some new capabilities. We've done some, it's been great to see customers then integrating ML models over their data in DW, doing things like that to kind of actually take advantage of all the connected services that are available in Azure.
Yeah, so if they move, so they already see new possibilities, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And
great.
And that's, that's a very real thing for people.
Also, there's a new feature like graphical execution plan in new SSMS.
Yes.
Yeah? So I think very cool direction.
Yeah.
But how much it can help right now?
So the important thing we found when people were using Explain plans in the old way when it was just XML. It's like it took quite a lot of explaining took a lot of explaining to explain how to use an explain plan. That's quite a tongue twister, but it meant that ultimately for us it meant that we were making our customers' lives more difficult, and so we wanted to have something that would give them the conceptual view and visibility of the plan in a way that people kind of knew and understood and were happy with. And so it's great to see the overwhelmingly positive feedback we've had when I've shown the use case, both in my pre-con with a datist on Wednesday, and also when we showed it in the session today. So that's been fantastic.
Yeah, but this plan is not producing by the engine itself.
Yeah, it's produced by the MPP engine. Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so literally what you're seeing when you run the graphical explain plan is exactly the approach that, had you run the query, that is what SQL DW would have used as a plan to actually execute your query.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so it is the real deal.
So it's that finish, or it will be extended?
I think we're at a point where we're happy with what we've got. We want to see what customers what feedback we get now, and then so I would say we're more in an active listening mode again for that particular feature.
So let me ask you a question like this. What do you think? What will be the future of the cloud?
It's almost the inverse. I think that the future of on-premise is more questionable than the future of the cloud. The future of the cloud, I think, is a pretty clear message. The signal, I mean, the vibe here at SQLBits. I've been here, obviously doing this for many years, and you know, the question isn't like, should I move to the cloud, or when can I move to the cloud? The question is, how, right? How do I get there? What do I need to do? And all of those sorts of questions. So I don't see it as a question about the future of the cloud. I think it's more of a I think it's more about how customers are moving their workloads to the cloud, how quickly they can do that, and what's driving that. And then for the workloads that stay on premise, and there are clearly legitimate reasons for that, it's about who can support you best there, and what customer solutions do we provide in that space. And that's what is so exciting about being at Microsoft, is that we support customers where they're at with the requirements that they have. I feel like we have some very compelling offerings in whether you're on-premise or in the cloud.
Yes, that's right. And the question could be, in the future, of course, why am I still not in the cloud? I should be there, because that's the future, I think, also. How did you start working with data?
So I actually have a law degree. I'm not a computer scientist in any stretch. I happen to have been sat at home very unemployed one day, and I was watching a TV show in the UK called Working Lunch, which was a lunchtime business show, and it was about 1998, and there was a chap on the TV, and they were interviewing him from Logica. Now CGI is the current version of that company, and they were talking about an international phenomenon known as Y2K, and that he was talking about the shortage of technical resources to solve the problem of Y2K compliance and coding. And so CGI's response to that at the time was to run a 4-week training course as an apprenticeship. And if you turned up at this university and passed the interview, they would put you on this 4-week training course and turn you into a Y2K programmer. And that's how I got into it. I actually turned up. I can honestly tell you that I failed the math test, and I failed that test, but I managed to ace the interview and they let me in, and kind of like the rest is history. Like 5 weeks later, I was having my first interview, and then I spent my first 2 years working on 4 of Europe's mainframes, making Y2K changes to their vehicle accounting system.
Oh, wow, that's amazing history.
And now you are at Microsoft. So, what is the most important part of your work?
I think wherever you go, the most important part of your work is the people that you're working with, and actually making sure that everyone is aligned to the goals that you have, and that you're actually all working together to actually achieve those goals. And I think when you have that alignment and that energy and everybody's pulling together, that's a phenomenal feeling. It's great to see things land. You win together, you lose together. And that's a very, very important lesson, not just professionally, but also in life.
Yeah, as a team, you are working as a team, yeah, completely. When are you preparing for the speech, like this conference, for example, how are you preparing yourself for a speech exactly?
So some of it's about you. I think it's really thinking about the audience. What you trying to work out as well. What do you think people need to know? What outcomes do you want them to have from having attended your session? One of the things about coming to this is like there is a wealth of choice, so appreciating the people that choose to attend your session is very, very important. And then once you have that, then I think the next piece is really about making sure that you give them something that's somewhat actionable. So sometimes like knowledge for knowledge's sake is it has very limited value, in my opinion, and so I rather think
knowledge itself, yeah,
for the sake of it.
Okay.
Whereas if I give you something that's purposeful that you can go and do, or you can go and try, or you can explore, and you take it forward, that tends to have a much more meaningful impact overall. But just like me telling you about my product, you listening and going, oh, that's very interesting, and then we all go away, and that doesn't necessarily change anything for anybody. And so that's why I try to think about showing things. Like we showed 3 things today in the session that hadn't really been shown publicly before. So, but there are 3 things that people can go and do, right? And they can go and do those immediately and improve their solutions when they go back to work. So one of the things when SQLBits was founded, one of the most important things that was a part of it was that the experience that the speakers had real world experience, that they were able to communicate value and actually help people who were attending with their everyday problems.
Yeah, share the practice from the real field, yeah?
Yeah, so I try and do stuff that's more true to that spirit.
How much important a passion is for you?
I think personally it's very important. You have to care about what you're doing. In my opinion, there's lots of people that are very passionate in this space, and I think that kind of shines through. When you're speaking about something, you have to be able to care about it enough to be able to communicate the value of it, and I think it helps make your sessions come to life.
This podcast is not only about the technical stuff, but also about the personality. So how do you think, and how about your work-life balance?
That's an interesting one. I'm sure if you asked Mrs. Rowland-Jones, she would give you a very different answer. I mean, I work pretty hard, I have to say, in that regard. There are lots of things that I care obviously about. I have family, children, not really very small children, but they're still my children nonetheless, and obviously I love and care about them very much. I would say things that I can do with them are obviously very important to me. I love my kind of sports. For my sins, I did go and see Arsenal play last night, and that was a thoroughly miserable experience, but I couldn't come all the way back to London and not see them play, even if they were quite horrible yesterday. But you can't have it. I can't have everything.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I have a question about MVP program. What do you think about it right now? How important MVPs are for Microsoft?
So I mean, I don't know which forums people listen to, but I actually, when I was an MVP, one of the things I valued the most as an MVP was the alias, the NDA alias that MVPs have access to, and likewise, I lurk on that alias as an employee of Microsoft. And the feedback I get from that, I take very seriously. I think MVPs have a very unique insight at a depth level of your product, and that is in and of itself valuable. Clearly, they don't speak for the kind of every person, because they are specialists and probably are in many cases the top, like 0.1% of professionals in the world, and so their perception of normality, of what's a normal everyday problem, versus so the standard at which they code is like exponentially higher, right, generally speaking. So you have to obviously take that into consideration as you balance out the feedback. But the feedback I think we get, especially from the SQL MVPs, generally is very very valid, very well respected. But like I say, I'm giving you the broader context, right? You have to kind of put it into the context of that this is an absolute expert in the field of what they're doing, or is a very influential community person that may be speaking for a large group of people. So you need to think of it in terms of those perspectives, I would say.
Okay.
And a little bit different question, but what hints would you give to young people who wanted to start working on the IT market?
That's a good question. I would say getting involved. I mean, like for example, I can chart. I know where my career was at when I first got involved in the community, and I know where my career is now.
Yeah, that's why we're asking about that question. Very experienced people. and
I owe an enormous amount to Simon Sabin, who actually first introduced me to community and into being more of a volunteer and actually giving up time. I can honestly say I would never be able to kind of pinpoint the specific ROI in doing a specific thing, because it's largely filled with intangibles, and I guess at some point I just gave up caring about that, and I cared more about what I was able to achieve and actually what we were able to kind of contribute, and at the same time found that my passions took me in a direction that has obviously has benefited me both personally and professionally, and without the community investment, I certainly don't think I would be where I am today, with the role that I have today.
Yeah, you mentioned some. Yeah.
But in terms of just starting out, I think, getting involved, going to user group meetings, going to SQL Saturdays is an integral part. But I think actually you've got to, actually trying stuff, actually being involved, being passionate about things, and actually trying to use technologies. And I think one of the things for data professionals actually is more actually broadening horizons and looking at new technologies and how they complement their already deep technical knowledge is definitely a thing.
Yeah, it's very valuable spot, because I heard, I don't know about you, but I spotted that some young people has that approach that, it's SQL Saturday, I'm not going because, it's my weekend, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I used to run my company, before I joined Microsoft, I had my own company called the Big Bang Data Company, and I used to take my son, and he used to be on the stand with me at SQL Saturdays, and he could deliver the pitch about SQL Data Warehouse as good as any Microsoft salesperson that you would ever meet. It was a lot of fun. I was very proud of him, and seeing him getting involved and engaged with the community and getting involved in the family business. I'm not sure that IT or a life of data is really what he ultimately wants to do, but even so, I was very proud of him for being involved and actually getting immersed in it and actually experiencing it for himself.
Okay, James, thank you very much. At the end of our conversation, tell us where we can find you.
So the most obvious ways to find me is sort of like Twitter is just at Rowland-Jones. You can get me on either LinkedIn, are the two main kind of social media platforms, but equally I would say, like, most of the, I like to try and contribute to both the documentation for Azure SQL Data Warehouse as well. So even if you when you are actually commenting on our docs and giving us feedback on things, you're actually connecting directly with the PMs that actually wrote it as well. So I think that's a very important point, and is not one to be kind of forgotten when we think about how we engage with one another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, James, for this conversation. It was, we are very appreciative.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us, listening this podcast, and time spent jointly.
You can find this podcast on website sqlplayer.net.
Share this episode if you like it, and let us know if you want to hear a specific person from SQL community, or maybe about interesting topic or technology.